So welcome to Italian Roots and Genealogy blog. I am the guest host, Philip Apollo, and today we have a very special guest here with us, the founder and regular host of Italian Roots and Genealogy blog, Bob Sorrentano. Bob recently went on a vacation to Italy, and he wants to share his experience with us. Hey, Bob, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Phil. Thanks a lot. Strange being on this side of the microphone. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. Last time we were having a interview, I was on the interviewee side and you were the interviewer, so it's a little bit uncharted territory. We could say.
Yeah.
You went to Italy. Why'd you go on this vacation?
Well, we started out trying to do this 2.5 years ago. We were due to go in April of 2020, just as the pandemic hit. And, we were on the fence there for a while. But the real reason, we had been to Italy 25 years ago and, went to Rome and Sorrento, and we didn't have the kids. But the real reason was really to go back to some of the hometowns.
What are some of these hometowns that you wanted to go back and visit?
Well, Naples was, I guess, probably the main spot, and we used that kind of as the the launching pad to go to some of the other places. But my dad's family, they lived in Naples just before they came. In fact, Circola, which is just outside of Naples, and my dad's brother and two of his older sisters were born there. So, I felt it very important to go there. And then going back in time to, some of the noble routes, we had Avellino, Capricotta, and Montebello. And I later learned Fossato, which is not that far from Montebello. So those were the places that we really wanted to hit.
And all of these cities / towns are all located in what many would consider southern Italy.
Yeah, absolutely. But the interesting thing is they were all in a different region. So that, put a different twist on everything. And again, going back before I started my research, I had no idea that I was from any of these regions or connected to any of these regions.
Outside of Naples?
Outside of Naples and Puglia, where my mom's family is from.
And the Puglia is the heel?
Puglia is kind of, it's on the Adriatic and kind of not, well, it does go into the heel, but along the back spine in the south. So okay. If you ran like a knee-length boot, maybe from the bottom halfway up or something like that.
Okay. That puts a good image in my head. So when you were trying to go on this trip initially back in April of 2020, who were you in contact with to set this trip up?
So and I don't remember how I found Letizia from ItalyRooting, but I found her. And it was probably because I was searching for somebody that was going to be able to help us do this genealogy type of thing. We didn't want to do a Perillo tour and I didn't want to try and do it on my own. So I came across Letizia Sinisi, and we went back and forth for a couple of months trying to set this up and her get an understanding of what I actually wanted to do. And she's really an expert in pulling together the genealogy part, but not only that, bringing you back in time. I like to refer to it as she brings you back to 200 years ago, 300 years ago, with the help of people in these towns. And then Loretta Pompi from BITN, she was the person who set up the meals and got us all the transfer tickets for the ferry or for the train, got us the hotels and B&Bs. So they work in conjunction with each other to really put this whole thing together.
I see. That sounds like a lot of moving parts that blended real nicely together to make a fantastic fantastic trip.
Yeah, and that was it. And there's always going to be glitches. There weren't many, but when there were, I mean, even on a Sunday we had an issue, and I called Loretta, and within a half hour everything was sorted out and fixed. What actually happened is the van we had, the battery went dead before we left Palermo, and I was like, well, okay, what do we do now? And they found another car to take us there, so in the end it all worked out. But
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's just a small bump in the road, though, right?
yeah, yeah.
How long were you in Italy for?
We were there. The trip was, 14 days, counting the travel time. So basically, 12 days of actually, moving through Italy.
That sounds like a splendid vacation. Nice. It's not too long, but not too short. It's like the right amount of time. I would.
It was too short.
Oh, really?
It was too short. I could still be there for if the money allowed.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, Italy's so like beautiful. Like the pictures you were posting, and even some of the videos you've put on the blog. It's just like the scenery's it's breathtaking.
Yeah, and the pictures don't even do them justice. My daughter took 2,000 pictures.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of pictures.
Yeah. When you initially flew into Italy, where did you fly into? Where did you really like start your trip at?
Well, we flew into Rome because we wanted to, the kids had never seen Rome, so we wanted them to see Rome. So we flew in there, and by the time we got settled and everything, I guess it was about noon. So we just kind of went out and walked around. And Rome is a great place to, it's a great city to just walk around. Every corner there's a fountain, there's a building, there's a 2,000-year-old ruin or whatever. So we did that the first day. The second day we had tickets for the Vatican Museum to go into the Sistine Chapel, and the Sistine Chapel was a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. I'd never been there before. But it took about 45 minutes to get there because they bring you through all of these different rooms. And I mean, the art is it's just unbelievable. That being said, it was very, very crowded. A lot of tourists there and quite hot. So then from there, we were going to take the fast train to from Rome to Naples, take an hour. Well, what happened was the fast train turned into the slow train because there was some sort of accident on the tracks. So instead of taking an hour, it took 3.
Okay. As long as you got to your destination safe and sound, though, that's all that counts.
Yeah, that's what we said. At least we were, because a lot of the trains were delayed. And I said to my wife, well, at least we're on the train going someplace. We're not sitting in the station. So,
That's another good.
we were supposed to get to Naples at 5 and we got there at 7, but not the end of the world.
So while you're on this train traveling to Naples, what were some of the feelings you had that you were finally going back to really visit your roots?
We'll be right back.
Experience Italy like never before, traveling with a scheduled group or create your own bespoke tour with friends with PhilItaly.com. Pack your bags and follow Phil. That's www.philitaly.co.
Yeah, and that's a good question because we had actually stopped in Naples when we went 25 years ago, but only to pick up a car to drive to Sorrento. At that time, I didn't know. I mean, I knew my grandparents were from Naples, but I didn't know where. I didn't know anything about it. The anticipation was just building and building and building up to get there. And when we finally got there, we stayed in the historic center. Not the most glamorous part of Naples, but it's where they were from. It's where they lived. So you imagine walking down a cobblestone street that's about, this wide, and just, gee, my grandmother or my grandfather walked down the street, maybe took a carriage down the street, maybe went into a store on the street. And the only way I could describe these streets in Naples is if you live in a city like Chicago or New York, where there's some of these little back alleys. That's the way it was. That's just the way it was.
I've even though I didn't live in Chicago, or grow up in Chicago, I've been to friends' houses that lived in Chicago, so I know what you're talking about in terms of like the back alleys.
Yeah.
So that's basically how their streets are there. You're saying, but they're also cobblestone.
Yeah, they're all cobblestone, probably, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 years old. Picture yourself walking down the street 500 years ago, and it probably looked exactly the same, with the exception of they probably didn't have neon lights, but
Yeah.
and they didn't have Vespas in between. So.
Yeah. Speaking of Vespas, what would you say is a good way to deal with Vespas?
Don't move out of their way. They will go around you. If you try to dodge them, they'll hit you. we learned after about probably the first day that the best thing to do, let them have the right of way. They'll find their way around you.
I'm going to keep that in mind for when I visit Naples. Ensure I don't get hit by a Vespa. So when you got to Naples at 7 p.m. that evening, did you immediately start touring, or did you just go back to your place?
Well, we were supposed to tour. We were supposed to do a walking tour, but that got pushed to the back. So basically, we got into our place, and they brought us to the restaurant for that evening. And because by that time I guess it was almost 8 o'clock or something. So we pretty much just ate and crashed. And we did the walking tour the following morning, and our guide Vincenzo, of course Letizia was with us, but our guide Vincenzo took us to the Via Carbonara, where my great grandmother was born and died, and to the Hotel Crocolo, which was the palazzo. And the way it was set up, the best way I could describe it is, I guess the princes lived and their families lived in the palazzo, but their children lived across the street on Via Carbonaro in what I would describe as one big building with a lot of doors. So everybody probably had their own apartment. And my great grandmother was born in, I think, number 30, and she passed away in number 23. Vice versa, but that's the way they lived. We got to go into the palazzo, and the inside of it is basically the same way it was, hundreds of years ago. It's decorated, of course, modern, but the stone walls and the stone floors and all of that was probably the way it was. And then we went to the Duomo, which is for the Blessed Mother, but it's also where San Gennaro's chapel is. So, everybody associates Naples with San Gennaro. He's the patron saint of Naples. And he has his own little wing in there. And the fascinating thing about that is that we were met by Don Agostino Crocolo di Tortorolo, who was a distant cousin of my great-grandmother. And he was nice enough to give us a book about the family and then explain to us about St. Francis Crocolo, who was from the family. And then also the fact that this part of the church that's dedicated to San Gennaro, there's actually markers on the floor. And the part of the church for San Gennaro is owned by Naples, and the other part of the church is owned by the Vatican.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
It's weird, right? Very strange. And then the last stop before we left there, Letizia had found this just quite by accident. There was a little chapel type of thing that was, I guess, bought or paid for by my third great grandmother, Duchess Beatrice Capici Piccicelli, and it had a marker on the wall in Latin saying this was from the family, and then the family crest in the floor. So, you know, that was pretty exciting to see. And they're not sure, but they think she may be buried in the chapels, but they're not positive about that. And then from there, we went to the Naples archives, and we got a tour of there from the director, and they brought us into rooms that nobody else is allowed to go into. And they had a historian there who pulled out 5 different documents from the Crocolo family going back. One of them went back to 1100.
Oh, wow. That's like almost 1,000 years.
1,000 years ago, yeah.
Jesus, that sounds amazing. Now, when you were visiting the palace and you were walking through the palace, what were you like? What were some of the like emotions you were feeling?
I just wished I could have seen what it was like back, 300 years ago or whatever. You could imagine it, but knowing that your ancestors walked through here, not that they walked through there, it was theirs.
Yeah.
It was theirs. It was the family's.
There.
Yeah. So, it's just wishing I could go back in time and be there when there was some sort of party or even look down and see what was going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just right outside the building and see what was going on in the streets that day. Yeah, that'd be awesome. The Carciolo family. Can you tell us a little bit about their origins? Because I know the South has a very rich history of different civilizations coming down and leaving a mark on the South. So I just wanted to know if you knew if they had any different type of origins, or if they're native to Naples.
Yeah, I could trace them back directly back to 950, and in Naples. From what I gather before that, they probably had some sort of Greek origin, but they've been in Naples since 950. It's a huge family. There's 3 branches, and I'm from the Rossi branch. They pretty much owned, much of the South, or involved in it. Married into the French, married into the Spanish. So yeah, they have a really, really long history, and I guess going back to the most prominent, I would say, would be the princes of Avellino. And they, unlike a lot of the families, they were so large and had so much territory that they would actually split things up. My 8th great-grandfather, he owned much of what's Campania today.
That's a big.
That's a big area. That's a big area.
Yeah.
And not apparently, he was loaded. He was, very, very, very rich.
Definitely. That your family was able to be recorded in 950 AD during the time of the Byzantine Empire ruling. They had to be extremely prestigious then, and I can only imagine how the wealth and the prestige built up by the time they became the princes of Avellino and controlled that much territory.
Right, and all the Quattros, like I said, they married into very, very important families, like the French Capet and the Aragons and Diabolos, and so there's as I was going back, I was finding more and more Spanish.
They probably married in with the Normans and as well as the German.
Well, yeah, way back, sure. Pretty much any of those Northern European, families, they were all connected in some way, shape, or form, going back.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But most recently, though, it was the Spanish because they were the most
Yeah.
recent foreign rulers of southern Italy.
Yeah, and in fact, it's going back to like some of my, I guess, third or fourth great grandparents. They're Spanish, intermarried with Spanish.
Obviously, they have this very rich history, and like you said, they're intermarried with these other families. So, where did you travel to next? Did you travel to a place where was like one of their home domains, or did you travel to a place that was controlled by another one of your families?
Uh, well, the next day we actually went to lunch where I was going to meet my cousin Cinzia for the first time. I mean, we've been talking online for years, and amazingly enough, my father's first cousin that I never knew existed up until about 4 months ago, and he came. He was at lunch, and they took us up to. They're Piumalo, my grandmother's father's family, and we went to a place just not far from Vesuvius, and great lunch, and they had people there in costume and all of that, and they took us up to the top of the uh, villa that we were in where we had lunch, and said, look out that way, and I looked out that way, and they said Circola and Massa di Soma were all Piramalo lands, so they owned land outside of Naples besides that. And I had no idea. I knew my grandparents lived in Circola before they came to America, but I had no idea that this was like that. And then, we had a great lunch, and then they said, before we go back to Naples, we're going to take you to this villa, I guess a small palace type of place, just outside. I guess it was in Massa di Soma, and it had my third great grandfather's name over the archway, and it had the family crest and all of that. The interesting part about that is we went in through an archway and into the courtyard, and they said, look up at the window over there. And I said, yeah. And they said, when the Count, on his birthday, he would roast a pig, and he would, give out wine to the, I guess, serfs, for lack of a better word, or the people that work the farms, whatever. And they would get drunk, and then he would throw money out the window to watch them fight over the money.
Oh, that's like.
Said, well,
I'm sorry, that's hilarious.
So apparently he wasn't one of the nicer nobles, but that's what he did on his birthday. That was his birthday entertainment.
Hey, some people find that entertaining. Some people find a game of soccer entertaining. To each their own, I guess.
But the day after that, we went to Capacota, which is where the Duchess Beatrice was from. That's her hometown, and that's in the mountains of Molise. It was, I guess, I don't know, an hour and a half maybe from Naples. And to your point, when you're making this journey in a car and it's taking you like an hour and a half, you try and imagine that. Now, they used to make this trip from Naples to these mountains by a horse and carriage or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Just imagine how long it must have took to get there. But that was a small mountain town. They have a ski area there now. Not in the town, but around there, and that's kind of their main thing. Small little town of 1,000 people or so. We got to meet the mayor, and he welcomed us. And then they said, we're going to go to church, and the priest has a special greeting for you. And what was amazing about it is Mass was ending. They were just was first communion for the kids, and after that, the priest got up there and started talking about us and how wonderful it is to have us come to the town, come from America, to find our history, to find out, our family and all of that. And nobody was leaving the church. Nobody left. They just stayed. Then I had to talk, and nobody left when I was talking, which is even more amazing. But they were all just, stayed to see what was going on. And after that, he brought us over to a little side altar, and there were 3 vestments. And they said these were donated by the Duchess, 100 and whatever, 1860, whatever it was. And they had the family crest on it. And they said these were the best ones. We have more, but these are the nicest ones and the best ones. And I said, could I touch them? Yeah. Italy, anything goes there. Yeah, sure, touch it. You can do whatever you want. It's fun.
In America, you gotta get 5 feet away from it and take a picture. Only sometimes, though, certain times of the day.
Yeah.
Sounds real nice and warm.
Yeah. And then we went into the sacristy, and there was a painting of the Virgin Mary, and they told me that there was five of the same painting was done 5 times, and they're in 5 different churches throughout, Campania and Calabria and Molise. So wherever the family had roots, they had one of these pictures of the Madonna in the church, in their church, basically. And then we had an amazing meal at Le Elfo, a restaurant, and the chef made a meal that was reminiscent of what the shepherds would eat when they moved the sheep from Molise, from Capricota, to Puglia. And they would go south to Puglia, where they would, shear the wool off the sheep. And so the meal that he made wasn't, reminiscent of what the shepherds would eat as they would make this trip. And, again, everybody was just so nice, super nice, wanted to meet us, wanted to tell us about, what they do, giving us, books and all kinds of other stuff. And that's the one thing that people need to take away if they're listening. You have to go to these towns. Rome is great, Florence is great, cultural centers, blah blah blah. But if you don't meet the people, you're not really getting Italy. There was a gentleman there he used to work for Valentino, dress designer, and he had a little museum with all his dresses in it. And they took us there and see the snowplow. 1950. People from Capricota in the U.S. donated a snowplow. It's still there.
Oh, really?
And they still use it. They still use the snowplow.
It works, hey.
Yeah. They keep it together. So that was, I guess that was the first Sunday we were there. An amazing trip.
It does sound amazing, especially because when people in America travel to Italy, they usually only go to these big cities, and they get the wrong impression of Italian people at times, where they think that Italian people aren't as warm to foreigners, but really they are. It's just that you have to actually go and.
You have to go to these places, yeah.
You have to go to more of the smaller towns.
So the next day we headed out to Avellino, which is behind me. And that palazzo was built by my 7th great-grandparents, Antonia Spinola, and I think it was Francesco Marino was the prince. And she didn't like the palace that was down the road a little bit. She wanted to be closer to Naples. Believe me, it's not that much closer to Naples, but it was up higher on the hill, and more in the center of town. So we pull up to this place, and you see all the Italian flags in the window, and they said, "That's for you." The flags aren't there on a normal day. They put out all those flags because you were coming. And really? We walk through that center archway there, and as we go in, there's guys blowing the trumpet, like the King of England was showing up. And I'm standing there like a doofus. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do next, right? So we, and again, this is where Letizia comes in. I mean, all of this stuff is set up with these people to do these things, and the people dressed again in costume from the 15 or 1600s, and exchanging of pleasantries and some speeches welcoming us and everything. we went upstairs for like a formal presentation, and of course, pastry. You know, we have some pastry and everything. Every place we went, there was food, of course. Um, you know, they told us about the family. And what kind of started to get me then is we always think of with nobles when we see these shows like, you know, Robin Hood and things, the nobles of evil and all of that. They have, they still, after all of these years, still have a love for these people. And it was explained to me that, especially in Avellino, that they brought a lot of industry there. They brought ironworks there. They had the agriculture, that they, you know, they were good to the people basically, and they supported their livelihood. And there was, you know, I guess a symbiotic relationship, you know, between them. So that was kind of really fascinating to learn about all of that.
That is definitely fascinating to learn, because it completely like contradicts the notion that we get from our popular culture that, you know, it was really like a oppressive type of society, when in reality it was more of like a, I don't know how to put this, more of like a, I scratch your back, you scratch my back
Kind
type
of, yeah.
society. You know, we'll bring in the industry, we'll bring in these types of things. You guys have to though work in the industry and do these things, and it kind of just helps society go, and you know, in a
Yeah,
smooth way.
yeah. It was pretty, and they still, you know, they still talk about these people. So from there we went down, you know, through town, going over to the Duomo, and the I forget what it was, built in 1100 or something like that. And we go in, and they gave us a little bit of history about that. And then they said we have to, you know, come up to the altar, and behind the altar there were 3 chairs, and they said these were the chairs that the princes would sit in, and their family would sit in. So Letizia says, hey, can Bob sit in the chair? Yeah, sit in the chair. I got to sit in so I got to sit in the prince's chair. My wife got to sit in the princess's chair, I guess. The
That's
kids got to sit in the chair. Like I said, yeah, sit in the chair, do whatever you want. Um, so, and then below the church is a crypt, and then in this particular church, the crypt was only the monks are buried in there, but it was this impressive white marble, beautiful. And that's the thing. Every church we went into, there were fresh flowers there. Everything was pristine. Just everything is just, you know, so well cared for. Um, it's unbelievable, and they take real pride in it. You know, they really do. Then we went down to the hunting lodge, and there's still, I think of it. We saw the ruins of the old palace, and that's where I got to dress as the prince. And
I saw that picture on Facebook. I thought it was awesome.
and they gave me the robes to bring home, so I have them in my closet over here. So,
Really,
yeah.
that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Because now you could really like keep it in your like direct, you know, family.
Yeah, I get to dress as the prince whenever I want. So,
Yes, definitely.
and then we went for lunch in a small little olive oil store, and I thought we were going to be there for. In fact, I think we are only supposed to be there like 45 minutes or something like that. And as we, you know, get there, they had, you know, cheese and wine, and bread with olive oil and all of that. And I thought it was just like a little snack. Well, the proprietor's family, they started bringing out all kinds of food. I mean, dishes and dishes of food. We had Liberatore, the 96-year-old guy who was playing his accordion and singing and dancing like he was 26. I was getting tired watching him. That's how good this guy was. And they would, you know, they would dress two of the women were dressed in costumes, and they just kept bringing out food and wine and food, and just so friendly, so open. You know, obviously there's a bit of, you know, They want to push the tourism and everything. But it wasn't like that. It was a genuine feeling that we're so pleased that you from America, generations away, want to come here.
Yeah.
That's the feeling that you get. That's why you have to go to these towns. You're not going to get that feeling, we didn't get that feeling in Naples per se, and we didn't get it in certainly not in Rome. But when you go to these places, especially if you have something set up like that, it's just incredible. It's like, family.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like it. I think this is like one of the coolest things I've ever heard in my life, to be honest with you. Like, you got to basically go walk in the path of your ancestors and like see what they saw, and like obviously not in the way that they got to see it, but to an extent. Then on top of it, you were just treated just so well by
Yeah.
these people in these small towns, and it's just wow. I think it's awesome.
So the next day, we kind of had basically a free day. I wanted to go to the cemetery in Circola to see where my great grandfather was buried, and we're going to the Sorrentino winery up on Vesuvius. Not a relation, but if you're in Naples, you must go to the Sorrentino winery for wine tasting and lunch. You have to do it. It was so good. The wine was great. The food was great. It's a must do. But anyway, my cousin Nicola, who I didn't know just a few months ago, 5 or 6 months ago, he had told us on Saturday, I'll meet you at the cemetery, and then I want you to come with me to Torre del Greco. And so I said, okay, as long as it doesn't interfere with the drive or anything. No, it's okay. So we meet him there. He shows me the crypt and everything, where it's now his grandfather is my great grandfather, because my great grandfather had a second family. He was 60 and he married a woman 30, 6 months older than my grandmother. So she had 2 daughters around my father's age. And Nicola is the son of one of the daughters. So we're leaving the cemetery, and he says, you come with me, and Nadia, his daughter, and your family could go in the van, they could follow us there. And so we get to this apartment building, and we're going up the stairs, and just before we get there to the apartment, he says, just wait here for 1 minute. And he goes up the last flight of stairs, and I hear this Italian going back and forth, and women, and Italian women. So he said, okay, you come up now. So we go up, and there are 3 women there in their 90s. 2 of them are my father's first cousins, and the other one was their sister-in-law. And I had no idea these people even existed. This is the first that I know that these people are there. And he didn't tell me. It was, I guess he didn't tell me who they were. They were the daughters of my grandmother's youngest brother, who went from Circola to Torre del Greco, I guess in the 20s. And it was like old home week. I mean, it was like I knew these women forever. We went inside. Of course, Nadia's translating, and we're going back and forth in Italian, which I don't speak, unfortunately. So then they start pulling out pictures. One of the pictures that they take out, somebody I had seen, one of the pictures that they take out is my mother and father's wedding, with my grandmother's handwriting on the back. I almost fell on the floor.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So you had no idea these relatives existed at all.
No,
Yet
no.
they knew your grandmother well enough to receive a picture of your parents' wedding.
Yeah. And they were my grandmother's nieces. my grandmother's brother was probably still alive when my parents got married, right? He was young. He was younger than her, so they were corresponding back and forth for all of these years. And not only that, but they even knew gossip from 1960.
Oh, really?
Yeah, tell them. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's funny.
And they also, so then of course we have to go in the kitchen, and they're giving us, they made some kind of food and pastries again. Everything's pastries, limoncello, wine, whatever. And since then, since we got back, Nickel has sent me more photos of my grandmother's brothers, and also pictures that my grandmother sent to her father in the 1920s with her handwriting on the back. And one of them was 1919, and it says, to my dear father, from your dear daughter, so you never forget. He found these pictures. She must have she sent them to her father. He must have gave them to Nicola's mother. And now he had these pictures. Some of them I had seen, but, obviously these were sent from her to Italy, with an explanation on the back. So again, to people, if you're doing genealogy and you're doing this research, never give up. Keep after trying to find people over there. You never know what you're going to find. And they have, and Nicholas sent me pictures that I had never seen before.
That's awesome.
So it was just incredible. So that was great. The next day we kind of just, bounced around Naples a little bit. We kind of had a, day tour. So we went to Pompeii, just to go. It was very hot in Pompeii, very hot that day. And crowded.
Was it really touristy?
Very, very, very. I mean, we went 25 years ago. There was nobody there, and you could walk right in. It was packed. It was very, very crowded. Very, very crowded. But still in all, the kids wanted to see it. So, we went there. And it's very, very big. A lot bigger than I think most people think. The next day we took the train from Naples down to Scilla in Calabria, which is a beautiful, beautiful town. Small, right on the sea. You walk down a bunch of steps to get to the waterfront. Really, really picturesque place.
I've seen videos of that town on Facebook. If they have the I Love Calabria, page on Facebook, they often advertise that town as one of the towns to go visit in Calabria because of its beautiful scenery. Now, did you have any sort of genealogical connection to there, or were you just more so traveling there to just get into Calabria?
Yeah, they put us there. I think probably because it was so beautiful, and then also it wasn't too far from the ferry, and it was only about an hour from Montebello, where we were going to go the next day. And so I think they just put us there because they wanted us to see the coast and all of that. So
now, when I wanted to take it back a step because you were talking about Torre del Greco. Where is that located? Is that located in Naples, but in
it's like a suburb of Naples, so it's probably 20 minutes or so away. Not too far from not too far from Herculaneum, the other city that was destroyed by Vesuvius.
Yes.
And not too far from, maybe 20 minutes from Pompeii. 20 minutes from Pompeii, something like that. So but it's right on the water. It's another, on the bay there. So it's really, really nice. And so then the next day was Montebello, which is where the Piumalo barons had their land. And again, I had no idea what to expect. They didn't tell us anything, but we get into town and meet the mayor. Had a little meet and greet with the mayor. More books, more stuff, those things. And then we went into the little town square, and they had folk music playing. This great band, Gino Neri and a couple of the other guys, and we had to dance, we had to sing, we had to do all of this stuff. And then one of the family's palazzos is there, and it's somebody still lives in it, part of it anyway. So we got to go in with Cinzia, and this was set up mostly by my cousin Cinzia. And we get there, and they gave me the key to open the door, and the owner was nice enough to let us go inside. He took us upstairs, and we got to hang out on the balcony overlooking the square. Had a wave to the people downstairs and everything. And just before we were leaving, there was a florist shop right next door, and he gave my wife a bouquet of roses, colored in blue and gold, the colors of the family, the Piermalo family crest and everything like that. Then we pile into a car, and we have this whole entourage now going to Fossato, where there's another palazzo. Again, they didn't know what to expect. There was a young boy there, probably in his 20s, I guess, early 20s. He sang the American national anthem, the Italian national anthem. And then we go up to the road, and there's the palazzo there. And that's still one building, one big stone building. And it's owned by somebody, but it's really, really in disrepair, unfortunately. And they tried to buy it. The town tried to buy it like 10 years ago, and he doesn't want to sell it. But anyway, we go up there, and they have this big long tables spread out with food, all made by people there. I mean, this wasn't store-bought stuff, right? Homemade cheese, olives, cured olives, the best capicola or whatever you eat in your life, homemade, cookies and things like that. And I asked him about the capicola, and I said that I've never tasted anything like this. Oh, we still make it like we make it 200 years ago. We killed a pig on the day after Christmas, and then we cure it till March, and that now you have it.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That had to be amazing.
And my cousin had made 10 kilos of eggplant parmesan and all and everything. And there was singing and dancing, and they were showing us games that they used to play. They showed me a game. This is before it was like bowling. It was like bowling, right? But they said this was long before bowling was invented, and we had this, and they were so proud to show us this. And again, same thing. So happy that people from America wanted to go there and see it. I mean, I think that was one of the most shocking things of the whole trip, was that they genuinely want us to go and see it. And they're proud to show us our heritage. I mean, they really are. And so they were there. We were there with them from 10 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. And nobody left. Again, they were all there having fun, singing, dancing, and just showing us a great time. More gifts. They gave us a big jug of olive oil. They gave me a painting of the palazzo that I said, how can I take this home? It was a big, big painting. Yeah. They said they're going to try and send it to me. We'll have to see what happens.
Hopefully you get it.
Yeah.
Sounds like like a very nice gesture.
Oh, I can't tell people enough about how welcoming everybody is there. Yeah, just in these, again, I keep harping on the small towns, but that's where you need to go. Even if you don't know where your family's from, you have to go to these small towns and see it. So great, fantastic day there with my cousin, who I only met on Facebook before, yeah. And then from there, yeah, go ahead.
When did you meet her on Facebook? Was it recently or?
Oh no, this was at least 4 years ago, something like that. And she's been helping me make contact with the family, and I've been telling her what I know. But she I don't think she was really that much into it until she found me. when she put it on Facebook, she never thought she would find anybody in America. She thought Spain, maybe South America, because
Really?
the Pio Malo is originally from Spain. So that's what she thought. But she found me, and then, the rest is
Yeah.
history, I guess, as they say. So then then we went off to Sicily, Palermo, Cefalù, where we stopped there for a few hours to have lunch. I met my friend Francesco that I interviewed, I guess, a year and a half ago, and we become buddies. So he lives like 20 minutes from Cefalù, so he met us there and showed us around, and gave us a walking tour, and then the next day we went to Shaka in Sicily, where my wife's grandparents are from. We didn't have anything really planned there, but we just wanted to see it. I wanted to see where they were from. Again, Sicily is gorgeous. I mean, you drive around the island and all you see is water and mountains and water. It's just incredible. And the water was just so, perfectly blue and all of that.
Did you visit the main city of Palermo?
Palermo. Yeah, we stayed we stayed in Palermo. Great town. We stayed in a really nice place there where they had breakfast like on the 6th floor outside, and you could just look out across the town and see all the churches and everything. So it was a pretty cool place. Yeah. And then we flew back to Rome. We had one more day in Rome, and we got to go to we went to St. Peter's, again, just to, show the kids, and hit St. Peter's and the Spanish Steps and the Trevi Fountain, the must-see places in Rome.
Before you departed and went.
Yeah, before we came back. And I wanted to get close up to Pope Paul's crypt, but they had it roped off, so I had to take a picture from standing back here. So.
Well, hey, you know what? I guess some things are like America, right?
Yeah. I tried telling them who I was, but they weren't buying it. Not in Rome. Avellino is a different story. Rome, they weren't buying it.
I guess not at all. Now, I wanted to ask you, because I remember seeing this on Facebook. When you were in Montebello, you ended up, the local newspaper ended up writing a story on your visit there?
Yeah, in all of the towns, in each stop, the Naples archives, they reported the story on that. Capicoto, we were on TV. Avellino, they had us on TV, and then yes, they did a write up. In the Montebello paper.
That's awesome. That's just they were so welcoming of you that they even embraced you and made it like local news for them.
Yeah, it was a really big deal, for them too. I'm friends with all these people on Facebook now, the people that we met in these places, and as I've been doing the blog and sending it, they're so happy to see that I'm writing about it, and telling people. And I have people, everybody said, "Oh, my family's from Avellino, my family's from near here, Capicoto, they're from Club." Go, you have to go. Yeah, you have to go. Pictures don't tell the story.
Yeah, of course not. That's why, even when I really wanted to go and visit Vegas. I know that's like a lot different than going to Italy, but you see pictures of Vegas and stuff like that, and you're like, wow, this looks cool. And then you go there and you're like, oh wow, this is really cool. The pictures don't do it justice. So I can understand where you're coming from for that. With that, I apologize for that. Spoke. Now I wanted to ask you some real hard hitting questions. Now, obviously you went to various regions in the South. What region did you feel had the best food?
All of them. Because it was all a little different, so it's hard to say. I think what what we enjoyed the most though was Fasado, because we knew it wasn't a restaurant. It was a
Yeah.
picnic that people, it was homemade food. We enjoyed that a lot. But also in Avellino, when we went to the little olive oil store, everything was brought out by the women that, they owned the restaurant. And they brought out like 5 or 6 different dishes, and they were amazing. They were really, really good.
You're making me hungry just talking about this now. Oh, I can only imagine just going to my dad's hometown of Zagaris and having like a picnic there with just all this homemade food and just eating. Oh man, I wanted to ask you a couple more questions. What was the travel like between the various different regions? Because I know that's like all these regions are very mountainousy in the south. So was it like you're traveling through all these mountains, like snaking roads, or was it just more so like direct line there? Because they
No,
maybe
there was a lot of stinking around. I mean, I didn't want to drive this time. We had a driver, um, and but yeah, it was especially in Calabria. Very, the hills were very, very winding around. Not so much Capricota or Avellino, but certainly down south in Calabria. Yeah.
I've like when you look at like the topography maps, like you see that the south is really hilly, but especially in Calabria, extremely mountainous area. Now you said that you didn't drive, so you used public transportation this time.
We use public transportation to go between the big cities like Rome, and then from Naples to Sheila. But the rest of the time, I got to, they set up, vans for us. Um, so it's probably a little bit more expensive, although renting a car in Italy is pretty expensive too. So I
Yeah,
just wanted to sit back and relax. I didn't want to deal with any of that.
yeah. I could understand why, especially when having to deal with those snaking roads. It's an uneasy feeling. It's like driving on like the Rocky Mountains when if you've I don't know if you've ever taken like
Yeah, yeah, I have. Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah, it's I'll never drive in the Rocky Mountains again. I'll tell you that much. I did not like that at all. Now, you mentioned earlier that you had a mixture of hotels and you stayed at a mixture of hotels and Airbnbs. When you stayed at hotels, were those more so in like the major cities, and then the Airbnbs were more so in the smaller or closer to the small towns?
Actually, the Airbnb was in Naples, and we were there for like 6 days. So that was good. They had a washing machine, and we could do some laundry, and they had a kitchen. Not that we cooked, but at least they had well, every place had a refrigerator. And then in the smaller towns, we were just pretty much in like a hotel. Well, Rome we had a hotel. Sheila we had like a small little, I guess we would like a family run boutique type of place, which was nice. And in Palermo we were in a hotel. So
I see. Now, did you have a preference between the two? Um,
uh, well, the in Naples, because we were there 6 days, that I wanted an apartment because, like I said, I figured, um, we could do some laundry, and it was a little more comfortable since we were there 6 days, since we were all there together. Um, and then in the hotels, we wound up getting 2 rooms, because there were 4 of us. So, but it was okay. I didn't really have a preference either way, except for Naples, because we were going to be there for like a week.
see, I see. Because I was asking you this question for the viewers out there that are planning on making their trip to see maybe they might prefer an Airbnb, or maybe they might prefer the hotel to go to a hotel and stay there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, if you're going to be someplace for, 5 days or more, an Airbnb is nice because it's a little bit more comfortable. You have a little bit more room to spread out. you have a kitchen if you want to make something. So that would be my suggestion.
Now I wanted to go back and backtrack substantial amount. Now you said you met family members from the Carcholos.
One, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then you met a good amount of family members from the Pirmalos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you meet any family members? I don't want to butcher their name.
Capici Piccicelli? No,
Yeah.
because they're kind of further back, and they that side of the family, the way it worked out was the Duchess's son who inherited the title, he merged the family names. So there's actually two families in Italy now. There's Piermalo Capici Piccicelli, which are the descendants from the Duchess's son who inherited the title. And then there's Piermalo, which also descends from the Duchess, but they don't have the titles. Although apparently they're still allowed to call themselves, Marchesa, some of them, or Marquis, because I think somewhere along the line, the king said that every descendant from this family could call themselves whatever. So I haven't quite figured out how all that works, but they're referring to Cinzia as the Marchesa. So I was nobody, but she was the Marchesa.
Hey, what can you do? I did see that on when I read the newspaper article, as well as when I seen the video. I think it was the video that was on the news.
Yeah,
and that would have been. I think that would have been in Capricoda. Yeah. I wasn't too sure, so I didn't want to state things and not be 100% sure. So yeah, I think that's rather interesting, but what can you do?
Yeah.
Does it have? Do you think it has anything to do with her holding the last name still, and you not holding?
Yeah, it's like I said. I think with some of these families, I don't know how. Again, I don't know how it all works out. There are some things where every descendant with that name apparently is allowed to refer to themselves as something. I mean, there was another baron there with us in Montebello. He's, I don't know if it was grandfather or great grandfather, somewhere along the line. He's married into a Piermalo, so we're some sort of distant cousin. But he's got a different last name, but he's a baron, I think, in his own right from the other family. So, they refer to him as the baron. Apparently, he's an entrepreneur down there and everything. But he came out just to hang out for the day. So,
I mean, that's very nice of him to come just hang out.
It was. Yeah.
Just kick back and chill with the family.
Yeah.
You guys are definitely related, being from the Piermalo family. I want to say, Bob, that this was absolutely awesome. Bob, this sounds like it was an absolutely fantastic trip and experience. I want to thank you so much for sharing with us, and as well as sharing with me, as well as the other viewers of Italian Roots and Genealogy blog. Thank you so much, Bob, for sharing your trip as well as genealogical story with us. I sure definitely appreciate it, and I hope that the viewers of Italian Roots and Genealogy blog really appreciate you sharing your story with us as well. And I hope you have a great day. And thank you so much for giving us your time to share this experience with us.
No, thanks, Phil. I'm glad you asked me to do it. And, for the people listening, I'm always looking for good stories. So whether you went before and you want to talk about your story, or you plan on going and want to talk about, your roots and what you found when you were there, just, contact me and we'll do it.
Thank you so much. And to all the viewers out there, you have a great day.